Guilty as charged. Guilty as charged.
Guilty as charged.
Guilty as charged. That's my guy.
Hey, what is up, everybody? Welcome to the Guilty as Charged podcast. My name is Steven, and I am the host. And we have reached the end of 2025 training camp. Summer, I guess, is officially over for football, purposes. We're 2 days away from the first college football game. We are, obviously 2 days away from the Chargers' final preseason game. 5 days away from cutdown day. Football season truly is right around the corner, and we have a lot to talk about today, even though we are kind of doing a Thursday show. And joining me to do that, as always, is my good friend Tyler. Tyler, what's up, man? How you doing tonight?
Dude, finally. I know there's not a game tomorrow by any means, but you get what be careful what you wish for, right? Because, oh, hey, the summer is ending earlier. That's great, or the offseason's ending earlier. That's awesome. And then the Hall of Fame game, and preseason week 1, preseason week 2, preseason. It's like, okay, you know what? Never mind. Forget it. I never want to play in the Hall of Fame game ever again.
Yeah, it certainly added to how long the offseason felt in general in a weird way. I've been over the preseason for 2 weeks now. Loved watching the Hall of Fame game. Obviously, watching the tape has been really fun. Again, getting some stuff there. So it's a lot of stuff. And Saturday, the Chargers are going to play Trey Lance and Taylor Heineke for 4 drives, and then it's DJ Uiagalelei and the third stringers for the rest of the game. So it just means that we're that much closer towards the obviously the regular season opening in Brazil, which is 2 weeks 2 weeks and 1 day away, right?
Basically,
2 days.
Yep. 2 weeks away, the 5th, September 5th, which is something. I'm just glad the whole drop discourse is over. QJ dropped a pass today, and Jalen Reagor did this today, and it's like, oh, God, I'm so happy that it's over. But again, careful what you wish for. We'll see about this offensive line, but they got to play a rough stretch to start the season.
Yeah, for sure. So we'll talk about some key players to watch on Saturday. Obviously, there's a lot of roster moving parts, and Jim Harbaugh, talked about that today, where, last year was pretty even, 25 offense, 25 defense, obviously the three specialists. But this year, as you kind of go through things, it is feeling a little defensive heavy this year. So we'll talk about some guys that really do need to have a strong finish to the preseason in order to potentially, cement their status on the 53. As the title says, we are also going to talk about some offensive line trade and cut candidates that are around the league. We have spent the last few days scouring 53-man predictions, trying to find these guys who could potentially be, upgrades at the 8 spot for the Chargers. Are there any connections? What's their versatility? Stuff like that. So we'll get into all of that here in a minute. Of course, have to give a quick shout out to our friends over at Prize Picks, the best and easiest way to consume daily fantasy sports. They have been a partner of ours for 2 years now. This is our 3rd year with them. And we have loved working with them. They are so good to us. And you guys, from what I can gather, have loved using them as well. Obviously, we've talked about Tyler's mom and her successes on Prize Picks. So this is truly, as we ramp up into the football season, it's the best time for Prize Picks. Obviously, baseball season is still in full swing, and you can still go take advantage there. But we are, a few short weeks from being able to choose Justin Herbert, more or less passing touchdowns, Omarion Hampton, more or less rushing yards, all of these things that you have it itchy and inclined for. Keenan Allen is back on the Chargers. So there's obviously a lot of exciting things to watch for on Prize Picks. The best way to do that is go to your app store, whatever app store you use, download the app Prize Picks, use the code GUILTY for a $50 deposit match on your first ticket over $5 or more. Again, that is Prize Picks app, code GUILTY at checkout. Prize Picks, run your game. Okay, so I mentioned it a little bit with the preseason finale. Trey Lance is going to start. He's going to play 2 drives. Taylor Heineke, who was back at practice yesterday after missing some of the other practices this week with what Jim Harbaugh called a general soreness. He's going to play 2 drives after that. And then it's DJ Uiagalelei and the third stringers for the rest of the game. So whether it's the quarterback Tyler or somebody else that you feel like just needs to have a really big game on Saturday, who are you most looking forward to watching on Saturday evening?
Yeah, to me, it comes down to this running back battle. We got a bit of an update today with Najee Harris, which wasn't an update, but it's just that's what it is. It's no update, no timetable, nothing. This is dragging and dragging and dragging, not even close to a return. You know, we had mentioned the last time we talked about Najee, it'll happen when it happens. And if it's out for the year, it's out for the year. If it's by week 5, great, whatever. We're just letting it, whatever happens, happen. But the running back battle has been the most interesting to me. We think and we feel at this point that Hassan Haskins is healthy. They've called him a core 4 special teamer, a core part of their special teams. He plays core 4 special teams. He didn't even have to play this last game. We believe this isn't really about Hassan Haskins. Technically, this is more for what is RB4-ish or RB3, depending on how you look at it, with Najee Harris. But to me, this is Kamani Vidal, Miller Hines, and Rocket Sanders. And who of this group makes it so obvious that they have to make the roster? And for the longest time, it kind of feels like Jaw Taylor too, because of special teams, because of a draft pick, granted different regime for Jaw Taylor, but because of, you know, how often he was playing, because of availability. It seemed like Kamani Vidal was the obvious quote-unquote lock to make the roster, regardless of how you feel about the player or other players that they brought in. But I just haven't loved how he's played. Granted, we mentioned it last show. The line sucked for him. It was terrible. It was terrible for everybody. So I'm not purpose necessarily on him, but he's been like the least interesting to me. He's been the least dynamic. He hasn't really been much of a pass catcher. He's not a guy who will return kicks for them. So I'm looking at like his spot, and I think it ends up going to him. But like Miller Hines, while he doesn't get as many touches in like the run game, he's got the return ability. And Darius Davis, I don't know if he returned to practice officially, but he's missed time.
He's back, yeah.
He is back, okay. There's something there potentially, should they need to call on him. And of course, Rocket Sanders, I think in a very short stint, has looked like the best runner of the 3. So to me, it really comes down to this running back battle. It's not like one player has to stand out. It's just all 3 of them. It's probably down to Vidal's job to lose. So I guess if anyone, he has to have the best game. They give him the opportunity. He just hasn't materialized yet. Again, line has not helped him, but he needs to have a good game to really cement his spot, because whereas initially I felt like he was kind of the natural lock. I talked highly about him. He takes a step forward. Yay. I just haven't loved what I've seen from him so far.
Yeah, I think the big thing, the big focus for Kamani in the offseason was becoming a more effective pass protector and, working in on special teams. And those 2 things have happened. He is working with the first team special teams units. He is a core 4 special teamer, supposedly. The pass protection has definitely looked better. I highlighted that when I went to training camp and saw him stonewall Derwin James. He had a couple of really good pass protection reps this past week, being able to solidify the pocket for Trey Lance. But my kind of, vision for him was like, okay, if he takes a step forward in pass protection, takes a step forward on special teams, he could be essentially a roster lock. But part of that is that I think he has the skill set to be the best pass catcher of this group. But then Rocket Sanders has that back shoulder catch, against the Saints. And then this past week, he had another catch where his hands were very outside of his body. And, he didn't gain any yards after the catch, but it was a difficult catch. It was turned right around and the ball was out. And so he's looked like a more effective pass catcher than Kamani has. So it is a bit of a tricky situation with Kamani. I think in the terms of needs to have the best game, I think he absolutely is the choice here. I wish we could kind of see him and Rocket get some run with like a better offensive line, just so we could like really see what it looks like. But at the end of the day, to me, like job responsibility number 1 of a running back is to be a creative, explosive touch ball carrier where you can turn a 1-yard gain into a 10-yard gain, because that happens so often in an NFL game where you're not going to get every single play blocked perfectly. Obviously, with the starters, it'll look better. Running behind Joe Alt is obviously very different than running behind David Sharp. But Rocket has shown the ability to create those explosive plays. He's shown the ability to bounce runs, make people miss, run people over. Kamani has been pretty underwhelming as a ball carrier, which, again, he needs to have this a really strong preseason finale here. But he's also been injured. He has missed practices this week. So really, how healthy is he at this current time? We don't know. I believe he was back at practice today. But he missed 2 practices this week. So
That's
it's
right.
just like the worst possible timing for him is to not be healthy at this exact moment, because we think they might carry 4 running backs, but what if they just can't fit that on the roster, even without Najee, on there? So this is a big game for Kamani Vidal.
Yeah, obviously things have changed with the Harris situation, but all these 3 guys are doing well enough, or they feel comfortable with them, where you could just cut all of them and find a way to keep some guy and roster manipulate some other way and bring these guys back. He's probably least likely to make it. But I personally, as the 4th guy, would prefer Miller Hines. I want someone who can be a pass catcher, who's a veteran, who's had years of having like almost 1,000 total yards in a season. Yes, it's been a minute since that happened, but I haven't really seen that from Vidal. Have not seen that from Sanders just yet. To me, as a kind of a 4th guy, and with Harris's injury, Hampton being so young, and Haskins not exactly being a dynamic guy himself or a returner, I kind of would prefer Miller Hines. He's the least likely to make it, but to me, that is my preference. And technically, by yards per attempt and yards after contact per attempt, he is better than Sanders this year.
Yeah, in the preseason games for sure.
Yeah.
Harbaugh had a quote about Hassan Haskins today where he said, quote, "There every day, he'd be one of the poster people for that. Top core special teams player. You need a good run, Hassan, right there, ready and willing and able to give it to you, football player." And that was the full quote. So
yeah,
Haskins is one of Harbaugh's favorite players from his Michigan time. He loves him. Ryan Ficken has become very endeared to him as well, because he is a legitimately like high-end special teams player who has return experience in the past. So that could even, be a higher value to this team if they need it. So he's going to make the roster. I don't think he's technically like in a position to be RB2 right now. I don't know. Maybe that is the case, but I think he absolutely is a roster lock. So, if this turns out to be Sanders versus Vidal, and right now I would say Sanders has the lead, but what if Sanders fumbles a couple times this Saturday? What if he misses pass protection? Like, then that complicates things. So
yeah,
both of them need to play well, but Kamani has not had as many flashes as Rocket, so he definitely needs to have a good game this week.
How much does Sanders only playing 5 special teams snaps kind of affect how you think about Sanders making the roster?
Not a ton, honestly, for me, just because I think of the other backs, I would trust him the most carrying the football, which, maybe that's not the case for the Chargers specifically, but I just think he's shown the best combination of vision and balance, speed, ability to, be physical. Whereas Haskins is like, he's a physical guy. He has good balance, but he doesn't have the same kind of juice that Rocket does. He doesn't have the same kind of pass catching ability that Rocket does. So to me, Rocket is the guy I would trust most of this group to be RB2 in a game. Like, if they had to play an actual game tomorrow, he would be the guy I would say should be spelling Omarion. So I'm not super concerned about it, but maybe those opportunities happen this Saturday because they just don't have enough bodies. And if he struggles with that, that could turn into a situation where maybe he's a healthy scratch and Kamani is up and Haskins is your RB2. But to me, Sanders is the second best running back on this roster right now without Najee.
Gotcha. Okay, so who are you looking forward to watching or focusing on, or which battle are you looking forward to this weekend?
Just real quick, because it is related. Lorenzo sent in a super chat. I don't know if you guys have seen Brian Robinson Jr. getting cut from Washington straight up. If they can't trade him, we taking a flyer. I don't know if you have any thoughts about Brian Robinson, but since we were touching on running backs, I figured we'd bring him up.
I don't know a ton about him statistically. I was a little surprised because it's not like they have this all-world running back room. I think isn't Austin Eckler RB1 right now for the Commanders, if I'm not mistaken?
Depends who you ask. There's a lot of love for Bill Ja'Cory Croskett Merritt or whatever his name is.
I think you added the Bill, but yes.
I think he goes by Bill. I think that's what he prefers.
Okay, I didn't know that. All right. Well, Bill is Bill. Sorry, science teacher. Sure, potentially. If Najee Harris is nowhere to be found on the roster in the next 8 weeks and they have no idea if he's going to be available, sure, I could see that. But in the case that that does happen, and Najee Harris isn't around for a while or at all, it's also just kind of Hampton season. And just use your first round pick.
Yeah, I don't think they need to really rush to go make this. Certainly not for a trade. And I know that Lorenzo is not asking that. He's asking if it's a cut straight up. There are apparently like 4 or 5 teams who are interested in trading for a running back. So I kind of think that Robinson Jr. will have that opportunity for what it's worth. I would not rush to cut him or sign him. Excuse me. I think the Chargers are pretty set with who they have. And, you know, if Najee is out for extended time and it's not working with the young players, then I think they would go sign somebody. But I think right now I'm good.
Yeah.
I think the next natural place to watch is the cornerback position battle. There's been a lot of obviously frustration with Jasir Taylor, and he's been playing in the fourth quarter of games. Nikko Reed has made this so interesting. He had another interception in practice today. He's had a phenomenal training camp. He had an awesome Hall of Fame game. I thought he played really, really well this past week. Obviously, he dealt with an injury or potentially 2 injuries. I'm not really sure. He said he was banged up at some point, and that's why he missed the Saints game. If Nikko has another really, really solid showing, I think that is enough where maybe he's not a roster lock over Jasir Taylor, who still is working with the first team punt as their best gunner. But if Nikko does have another solid game, if he has another interception, I think it'd be really difficult to envision him coming back on the practice squad. All these teams are looking for corners. This is a position group that is kind of an attrition position. You know, these guys deal with hamstring injuries and ankle injuries and things like that, you know, all throughout the season. Obviously, we saw that with the Chargers last year. So somebody like Nikko, who had the big, bright moment in the Hall of Fame game interception, has had so much buzz throughout training camp, about him. I would just have a really tough time seeing him finish off the preseason with another solid game and making it through waivers. And I think there's a real chance that if the Chargers cut him, then they lose him. And this is obviously Thomas Harper last year was not like this. Like Thomas Harper was not practicing and playing at this level, but he was a player that we were excited about and the coaching staff was excited about. Well, they cut him thinking they could just stash him on the practice squad, and then the Raiders signed him, and I don't even think he's in the league anymore right now. But you know, same kind of thing where if you cut him, I don't think you get him back. I think he is getting claimed. So has he done enough to make the 53? I think we're very close. I think he is definitely on the bubble. But if he has another couple pass breakups, a good run stop, special teams tackle, then he can cement his status on the 53, perhaps in a way more so than the other players who are also on the bubble.
Yeah, so I have here on the screen like Nikko Reed versus, but in like a question mark, Jaw Taylor. It's not really specifically them. Yes, they could in theory both be gunners. Yes, they are both corners. I think it's crazy, but I think Jaw Taylor's spot is safe. I feel worse about that by the day, and for each game I see him, I feel worse and worse about that. And he didn't play a ton of special teams the Hall of Fame game or this past game, but he's a guy that's been healthy this entire time. And the rest of the cornerback room, including Nikko Reed, cannot say they've been healthy this entire offseason. Yeah. But I do agree. Nikko Reed is the most likely player, if the Chargers cut them, to be picked up by another team. Like I like Caleb Murphy, Tre'Mon Morris-Brash, Marlo Wax, Rocket Sanders, let's say. I like all these guys, but specifically at corner with what he's displayed, I feel like Nikko Reed is the first guy that a team would pick up. So I think you find a way to stash him. This feels even more so because we felt less buzz about AJ Finley, but it feels like AJ Finley 2.0 from a couple of years ago. There was plenty of interest about AJ Finley, and they kept him. And it obviously didn't work out. They got Elijah Molden the following year, blah, 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 blah. But same thing here with Nikko Reed. I think this is one with one more good game, a pass breakup, and a special teams tackle, at least. I think you kind of have to keep him and find a way to make it work.
Yeah, and I know this is like the cornerback battle, but to me, this is a roster construction issue first and foremost. You know, Delshon Phillips, him coming back is great for him, and I think Ryan Ficken was like genuinely jazzed about having him back.
Yeah,
but having that fifth linebacker spot be so locked in, it makes things complicated, as we've kind of discussed this. And I think there's a real chance that they just are not able to bring him back because of special teams. And I know people don't like to hear that, but the back end of the roster is always special teams guys. And Ryan Ficken obviously has earned the right to be able to choose his guys. And right now, he still believes that Jasir Taylor is his best gunner. And as James just pointed out, he plays through the broken leg. Jim Harbaugh has already been on record saying he loved that toughness, that really matters to him. Up until the first preseason game, he was having a good camp. Like Popper wrote about him several times. Eric Smith did. And then unfortunately, just the preseason games have not looked good at all in any capacity. So it's frustrating for sure to see him, kind of pivot back to this player who looks more like a rookie than a fourth-year player. But Nikko Reed, I think, is just right on the cusp. And the thing is, like, can you keep him or can you keep Naquan Jones? Can you keep him or do you keep a ninth offensive lineman? Do you keep him or do you keep the fourth running back? Like, Jasir Taylor does feel pretty safe to me on the 53, but Nico can definitely earn his way on there with another positive game on Saturday.
Yeah, I agree.
For people asking about, Eric Rodgers or Dean Leonard, those guys are currently injured. It sucks. They just haven't been able to stay consistently healthy. And Eric Rodgers had obviously an awesome preseason game, pick 6, another interception, pass breakup. But it really is just that one game. And I don't want to take away from that game. We talked about him when it happened, but he was not flashing in practice the way that Nikko Reed was. So I want to give credit to him for that individual performance, but it was not enough for me to even put him on the bubble when there's just not been a ton of consistency throughout the summer.
Yeah, I agree. This is a player that nobody was really talking about. Granted, no one was really talking about Marlowe Wax either. But he had the one great game. It was a great game, but that's really been it. And as UDFA, it sucks, but that's just the way it goes.
Yeah, it's unfortunately the nature of the beast sometimes for undrafted free agents.
Yep.
Okay, before we continue, our audio audience is going to take a quick break, and our YouTube audience is going to continue right along here next. So you mentioned Mr. Marlowe Wax. He's had a lot of buzz recently. Deion Henley, Derwin James, any defensive player, coach that has been at the podium has talked about Marlowe Wax. It sounds like Del'Shawn Phillips should play in this game. But can you see a world where they keep 6 linebackers, or what are you looking for from Marlowe as we close out the preseason?
I don't think so, unfortunately. And I think he's earned the right to be on the roster. It wasn't as great of a game this past game, but he still had 3 run stops or 3 good tackles, 2 pressures. He's played the second most special team snaps of anybody this preseason. So he's out there. He had a special teams tackle this past game, sort of as a chase out of bounds. I wish they could find a spot for him, but in a world where he's really not playing, he's just a roster stash. And I'd like to see him develop on this team. But if it's, kind of roster stash guy versus, let's say it is Tucker Fisk or Nikko Reed, who probably play and are active on game day in some capacity, like, it sucks, but I think he's not going to make it. I think he's awesome. He's a lock for the practice squad if he makes it through claims and whatnot.
Yeah.
But the only thing to keep an eye on maybe is Junior Colson, because he hasn't practiced lately. But I think he's going to be okay. It's not like it's anything completely serious, unless that ends up being serious. I think Marlowe Wax is, not a 0% chance to make the roster, even with a good game, but I think it's just a very low chance.
Yeah. Up until Monday, I would have said a pretty good chance, just because I thought that he had been earning that right with his play. But, Phillips and his special teams role, unfortunately, just kind of makes it difficult to keep 6 linebackers. I want to say Staley kept 6 linebackers one year when it was like Amon and Nick Neiman and those guys. Yeah. Obviously, a lot of that was special teams, related. But to me, of all of the players who I think are like have played up to par with being like a member of the 53, but probably aren't going to be on the 53. I think you could argue that Marlowe Wax is priority number 1 for the practice squad. I would obviously put Tre'Mon Morris-Brash in that conversation. I think you could put Nikko Reed, obviously, if he's not on the 53, he would be in that conversation, but to me, it's probably one of those two. So I think Wax is definitely somebody I'm interested in, particularly next year where Denzel Perryman's a free agent, Troy Dye's a free agent. Obviously, we don't really know with certainty what Junior is at this point in time. Delshon Phillips is he on a 2-year deal? I can't remember if it was a 1-year deal.
I don't know.
So either way, there's not a ton of long-term certainty in the room outside of Dayon and Junior Colson. So if Wax can stick around, that would be great. And then next year you can see, him maybe push for a 53-man spot.
Yeah. So 1-year deal for Phillips. So yeah, Marlon Wax would be great to add this to the practice squad. I wouldn't be surprised to see him elevated in some games this year. I don't think he would play ahead of Junior Colson, but he's earned the right, I suppose, based on play, but not based on draft pick by any means. It sucks, but we kind of know how it goes with Denzel Perryman. There will be games missed. So I anticipate Marlon Wax will be either signed to the 53 at some point or elevated.
Yeah, Popper has kind of been talking recently about the Chargers maybe managing Perryman's snaps a little bit more this year, whereas last year when he was like the most sure thing they had, and so they played him a ton early, maybe this year it's just maybe kind of pull him back a little bit so you can have him for the playoffs and not deal with the back and forth with the groin injury and things like that. So Marlon Wax, I'm sure we'll see him at some point this season.
Yeah.
Last one for the preseason finale for me, Caleb Murphy versus Tre'Mon Morris-Brash. This edge rusher duo has been really, really solid in all of the preseason games. There's been a lot of practice hype around both of them. Jesse Minter was asked about him earlier this week and gave a big shout out to how he's progressed as a player, the ability to make an impact as a rusher. Ryan Ficken talked about his ability on special teams. He's a first team core special teams player. And so this is a guy who I think has earned the right. I was messaging you about like maybe making him a lock, and I think that's probably where I end up at. But if Tre'Mon Morris-Brash comes out on Saturday and has 2-3 sacks, has a special teams tackle, I think he can at least make it a lot more interesting. Not that he hasn't played well, but just the special teams aspect of it, again, is really why I think this is leaning more towards Murphy. But I'm excited to see how these two players finish off the preseason on Saturday.
Yeah, I think one of the most important things, especially with Kennard, we have no idea at this point, is that we're trying to get Tuli Tuipulotu to play more on defense. And you've got to find an edge rusher who can play special teams. And Morris-Brash has played more snaps, but Murphy has just been the highlight guy, the better guy, the more impactful guy on special teams. And he's been a good pass rusher in his own right. It sucks that one of these guys has to not make the roster. I'm assuming one does. Technically, it's possible both don't, but I'm assuming it's Caleb Murphy. It sucks then that Morris-Brash doesn't. They both they've been healthy. They've been great in camp. They've been great in games. It sucks that one person can't make it. And whereas the offensive line, it's like, do you have a pulse? And two of those players are going to make it. So it sucks that one of them won't. I think Morris-Brash can make it very interesting. It's too bad that he can't also make the roster.
Yeah, good problem to have. We'll see about Kyle Kennard. He is back at practice, so he's been working out there. So he's probably somebody we should bring up here as well as somebody we're looking forward to watching, just because there's been basically nothing this summer, which is not great, because he's a guy that we really liked and they spoke very highly of him when they drafted him. So it's just funny that we're like, yeah, it's been quiet, but he's going to make it. And that's what draft capital does for you. And, even though he hasn't made a ton of plays this summer, he is somebody who would get claimed off of, waivers, because he is a pass rusher who, from the SEC 4th round capital. So you got to keep him if you want him. And unfortunately, it just kind of seems like we're trending towards a redshirt season.
Yep.
But the good news is that is happening because a player like Murphy or Tre'Mon Morris-Brash have really taken that next step.
Yep.
All right. Did you have anybody else you wanted to highlight real quick?
I'll do it for 5 seconds. Here you go. Sharp, Barnhart, and Stewart. I don't know, dude. One of these guys or two of these guys is going to make it. And I don't know. Good luck to my mental health.
Yeah. If they do put Branson Taylor at tackle, I'm curious how that goes. David Sharp and Corey Stewart have just been kind of like locked and loaded at those two spots ever since they signed Sharp, essentially. So what does it look like if Branson goes out there? Can Sharp make enough progress between his first preseason game and the second to, earn a spot on the 53, earn a spot on the practice squad? I think that remains to be seen. Okay. Let's get to these offensive line cut and trade candidates. We're not going to be putting like Quentin Nelson in here. I've seen a lot of people like talking about him because he's frustrated with the Colts quarterback situation. Braxton Jones has been a guy who people have talked about time and time again. He's currently projected to be their starting left tackle in Chicago. The Athletic reporters all essentially consider that a lock, basically. Ozzie Trapillo, who they drafted in the second round this year, has been moving more of a swing position role. So those guys we're not talking about. Visconti says he'd settle for Creed Humphrey. They could have taken him. The whole league could have taken him. Unfortunately, they let him fall to the Chiefs. So we're not going to be talking about that kind of player. You guys who have been watching the show for a long time know we try and keep it realistic. And yes, that's not going to bring in a lot of like star caliber offensive linemen, but some players who I think could solidify the 8th spot behind Andre James for sure.
There's a couple names on here. I'm just excited for the chat to see. I'm so excited.
I really tried to be as positive with this list as I could.
Sure.
And bring in some connections and things like that. So, it should be fun. I think, again, there are some decent options here, which, again, is the bar right now. We're not looking for star players as offensive lineman number 8. We're just looking for, have been in the NFL before.
That is really where we're at. Give Stephen full credit for this, by the way. He went through and looked through a ton of names, found connections. I did have to Google a couple of these ones. So, Steven, man, like, good for you, dude. I saw that you made this list. We didn't even talk about doing this, and he just like made the list. And it was ready to go for me to just sit here and go, oh, who's that? Oh, who's that? That guy? So it was, anyway, enjoy, everybody.
Yeah, so many people were like asking about it, and I was like, okay, maybe I should just like do this and see if we have time for it for a show. If not, maybe I'll just do like a solo video.
Sure.
And obviously we had time to do it for a show. So let's dive in here with our, again, offensive line cut and trade candidates. We're including both tackles and guards, players who could do both, because the team has said that Jamari Sawyer might be their swing tackle. He might be their swing guard. So who knows? They probably just need any capable offensive lineman. So trade options at tackle, there are actually more than guard, which I thought surprised me. There weren't a ton of guards who I thought were like interesting and realistic trade pieces. So we've mentioned Evan Neal before. We mentioned DJ Humphries before, Kendall Lamb. The new addition here, which I kind of tweeted about, is Dylan Radins from the Saints, who we obviously have talked about the Tennessee Titan connection several times before. The Chargers have really put a lot of value on flexibility where, they want these backups in particular to be cross-trained as much as they can. Dylan Radins has made starts in the NFL at 4 of the 5 positions. The only one he's missing is center. He spent most of his time on the right side. So, there's this, world out there where Jamari, maybe he feels better on the left side, particularly at tackle. And so you're maybe a little worried at right tackle if anything happens to Trey Pipkins. So you're maybe kind of looking for specifically somebody to play right tackle. And that is where Dylan Radins has spent the bulk of his time, is on the right side. 2023 was his best PFF season in terms of pass blocking efficiency and run blocking grade and pass blocking grade. And he spent the bulk of the season there starting at right tackle. So to me, this is the most interesting option that has been a potentially like good player at certain moments. Just didn't really work out in Tennessee. And then they switched schemes, switched in positions. It hasn't been super clean. But he was the new addition that I think could be potentially interesting for the Chargers.
Yeah, this definitely, obviously the Chargers and Joe Ortiz and the Titans general management, I'm assuming it hasn't changed. Clearly they're fine making deals with former draft picks of said regime. So I think that this is theoretically possible. It's nice to see that his career didn't start so great. Like it wasn't great. We've seen it, but it has progressed. And last year was his best year. So it's possible the Chargers are maybe getting a player on a bit of an upswing, and they like their former reclamation projects. Not that he was like a first-round pick, But I could see that working. When I was looking at this list and over the list of names you had, I didn't consider the fact that Jamari would be maybe more comfortable on the left. So you might want to find a right priority kind of guy, right guard, right tackle sort of option for them. So that was a good call there. I think this is like Kendall Lamb, I think is okay, I'm just say this. DJ Humphries is on the list. My God, his numbers were terrible. That whole situation's a hot mess. And as you said, the bar is the floor, right? So I understand. But I think that Raduns would be interesting. Yep.
Yeah, DJ Humphries was so bad for the Chiefs last year that they decided to put Joe Tooney at left tackle instead of DJ Humphries. So that's where they were at. I think like his veteran cachet holds some weight. And again, for the Chargers, he would be I think for the Rams, he's technically their swing tackle right now with Alaric Jackson unhealthy. In this case, for the Chargers, he would be their fourth tackle instead of their third. So you'd be, less liable to play any of these guys because of Jamari. Kendall Lamb is probably the best player right now. Yeah. Unfortunately, he just didn't seem like he had a huge free agent market. But when he was filling in for Teron Armstead in Miami, he was like a legitimately good player. He had some really good reps against Khalil Mack. I remember, thinking that was a tough matchup for Khalil that week. Has a nice physical base. Again, played a lot of snaps on both sides. So he's probably the best player that they could potentially trade for. The Eagles don't really need 4 offensive tackles, which is kind of what he is right now. So I think that could be potentially something that is on the table. And again, the connection with Mike Devlin from their Houston days is definitely notable.
Yeah, he's my preference overall for a pure tackle option for them. The Jamari Sawyer and now Branson Taylor, switcheroos like, hey, he's our swing tackle. Hey, he's a natural tackle. That kind of throws a monkey wrench in this whole thing because now it's like, are we looking for a guard?
Yeah.
But if they were looking for an actual swing tackle option, Kendall Lamb I think is the best one on here.
Somebody asked this of Popper yesterday, and I want to ask you because I have my opinion.
Oh boy.
Do you think Jamari is a better tackle or do you think he is a better guard?
Without knowing exactly how the weight loss has affected his ability to play either spot, and perhaps it makes him a better tackle, let's say, I think Jamari has always been a better guard option, not tackle. I think that's reflected statistically. I think it's reflected in the film. And as much as a lot of Chargers fans revere that rookie season, again, it was great for him, great for a rookie, great given the circumstances, and a below average statistical season. And they tried their best to make sure he was not in trouble, and they threw it quickly. And credit like Joe Lombardi for getting that kind of done there. He's definitely a better guard, though. I mean, I interviewed him. He was basically talking about him being a guard. He thinks he's a better guard.
Yeah, I figured that would be the case. I agree. The left tackle stuff. Say? Popper thinks he's a better tackle. Maybe some of that is like better tackle now because of the weight loss. And I do think because of the weight loss, he is better suited to play left tackle now than he was 4 years ago.
Right.
But to me, he's always been a better guard because that's where you can more weaponize his strength and his power and his the pop in his hands and things like that, allows him to get his hands on rushers much more quickly. So I think skill set wise, I still firmly believe he's a better guard. But I know a lot of the fan base does think that he's a better left tackle.
Yeah. I think you're lucky he can fill in a pinch, but he's a guard. And I will say that, hey, our Lord and Savior, Frank Smith, for 1 year, he tried him out at guard. And if Frank Smith says he's a guard, he's a guard.
Yeah, Frank Smith says he's a guard. Up until Rashawn got injured, this regime said that he was a guard too. So
yes.
Yeah.
Yes, guys, Joe Lombardi was not great, but he did at least try to make things quick. You can say whatever you want about Joe Lombardi. You cannot tell me he didn't throw the quick game out there.
Hey man, that 2021 offense is still the best offense Justin Herbert has played with. And
yes, argue with the wall.
Yeah. Okay, tackle cut candidates. Again, we are going to be talking about some previous Baltimore and New York Giant connections. Kieran Amagaji is, I believe, how you say it, the Bears player here. This is somebody, thankfully, that I heard his name brought up on the Athletic Football Show when they were talking about it. So I was like, okay, I'm going to note that. Definitely more of a project. He has not played a ton in the NFL. Was a later round draft pick, obviously formerly out of Yale. So potentially interesting. Sounds like there's a good chance that he is cut just because the Bears have 3 tackles that they feel really comfortable with. I've mentioned Tyree Phillips before. This is potentially my preferred option of the cut candidates because he can play both sides, because he has some guard flexibility as well, because there are coaching staff connections. But by no means is this like an awesome, option here. I'm putting Foster Sorrell and Trent Scott on here. And yes, I'm dead serious because
I'm gonna
Trent Scott. Trent Scott has low-key turned into a really solid backup offensive lineman for the Washington Commanders over the last 3 years. And again, the bar is at the floor. So I will literally take anyone. And I know that it did not go well for the Chargers. I understand that it was really, really poor. But he fought his ass off, and Philip Rivers still to this day will talk about him in a positive light. So he's not going to be high on this list, but he is on the list for sure.
Yes, no, it's right to include him. Look, we said on the last show that a player had a pass blocking grade of 0.7. He was still the second worst of the day for the Chargers. So literally almost anything else would be better. Yes, Trent Scott was not great with the Chargers. There was no expectation for him to be great. It's almost unfair that he had to start week 1 for Philip Rivers' final season. That's not fair.
Yeah.
And I'll say, like, he's played both tackle spots.
Yep.
Last year, his pass blocking efficiency was 97, which is about league average. Like anything over 97, say that's about league average. You could do worse. Guys.
Yeah.
I think Kieran Tamagotchi or whatever his name is. I look, dude. I shouldn't just stat hunt, right? Maybe I should watch the game. But he had 4 pressures, 1 sack, and 4 penalties in his last game that he played. And like, I don't know, man. That's a little rough there. But Tyree, to me, this screams Tyree Phillips. Like Tyree, granted, I think we said that 2 off seasons in a row now. But Tyree Phillips kind of does seem like the player that they would add.
Yeah, I probably tend to agree there. I'm really curious if they would just bring Foster Sorrell back. We know he knows the offense. We know that he has connections on this team. We know that they can, put him at guard in a pinch is how they view him. So we'll see what happens there. But the last 2 on here, I've mentioned Jackson Carman before. Definitely fits like the, high recruit pedigree. Missed out on him as a recruit, at Michigan. He was his former 2nd-round pick, was considered a 1st-round pick for most of the season, up until the very end there. Then he was a high 2nd-round pick. So he's played left tackle, right guard, some things to work with there. And then the last one is, again, similar to the Kieran Amagaji. This is definitely more of a project one. But Caden Wallace from the New England Patriots, who, yes, I know it says a lot that he's probably is a cut candidate for the Patriots offensive line, which is probably the worst offensive line in the league. But he is from Penn State, so there are coaching staff connections to Coach Carpenter, who is the offensive quality control coach. He was recruited quite heavily out of high school to Michigan, visited Michigan several times, had coaches visits. They were definitely very interested in Caden Wallace. So he, again, fits a lot of the things that the Chargers have been interested in the past. He was a 3rd-round draft pick, so there's not a ton of draft pedigree here. It has not gone well in the NFL so far. I will fully acknowledge that, but this is kind of more of a reclamation project than the other players on this list who you have some ties to and could be potentially interesting.
Yes, guys, I have nothing more to add to that. So there's nothing else I could add to that discussion. So there it is.
Yeah, there it is. Okay, real quick, our audio audience is going to take one more break, and YouTube, where you're going to continue right along. Okay, available tackle free agents. These are the 3 players who the Chargers hosted for a visit before they signed David Sharp, or I guess in conjunction with David Sharp, who they signed. There's not a lot of good offensive linemen that are still free agents, guys, offensive tackles in particular. But I thought it was worth maybe kind of expanding on this list in case they wanted to revisit this group. Cam Fleming, who went to Stanford, played for and was recruited by Jim Harbaugh, is an 11-year vet. Again, highlighting maybe somebody who could play right tackle for them. Over 2,000 career snaps at right tackle, over 1,000 at left tackle. So this is a guy who's got a legit track record. You could be potentially worried about like being in game shape and things like that because he hasn't been on a team all spring, similar to David Sharp. but worth bringing up a little bit here. Chris Hubbard, same exact draft class, same kind of argument. He's got over 3,000 career snaps at right tackle, has been an actual starter for multiple years in his career, as opposed to Fleming, who's kind of been always a swing tackle type. And then, a couple of years there in Denver where he entered the season as a starter, and that's where the bulk of them came from. But Hubbard also has guard snaps. He played guard for the Cleveland Browns in 2022 and had like potentially a good season there. So interesting veteran there. Julian Pearl, who is a former Ravens undrafted free agent, has not been on a team in a while. I don't know a ton about him, honestly. There's like 3 preseason games, and that's about it. But that's the list of who they visited with previously.
Heck yeah. I think in terms of what they would go for, barring an actual injury, if we're looking for not David Sharp, to me, that's more Cam Fleming. Obviously, they brought him in. There's a connection. There's some familiarity. I think when you have the first time, obviously he recruited him, played for Stanford, been in the NFL. I'm sure he knows some players on the team and whatnot. And then they brought him in for a visit. I just think at some point it is going to be Cam Fleming. Just kind of strikes me as an option that becomes their preferred option. I don't know why it was David Sharp. I would have preferred a Cam Fleming or even a Chris Hubbard at this point, but he, solid in spot duty, generally a slightly below average player in terms of statistics, but I would take him over Sharp. So if they're looking for just better than Sharp, I think I would go with him.
Yeah, obviously physical conditioning, how the workout went is, a big contributor of why they, sign the players who they do when it comes to these workouts. So
they said David Sharp was out of shape basically. So
yeah,
how bad was it for Fleming?
Yeah. I don't really know, but obviously from a veteran standpoint, from a resume standpoint, Fleming to me has the best resume of this group. He had some really good moments for the Broncos, a couple of really solid seasons for them.
Yeah.
They didn't work out George Fant. Fant ultimately signed with the Commanders. That's the player that I really wish they would have brought in for a workout. But we'll see what happens there.
Yep.
Okay, at guard, again, not a ton of options here in terms of interesting trade candidates. The trade candidate I did bring up is Ryan Bates from Chicago, somebody that the Bears, traded a 4th-round pick to get last offseason. He is somebody who has played all 3 positions on the interior, so he is a little bit more experienced than these other 2 players. It's not always been great, from a grades perspective, pass playing efficiency perspective. It's kind of more in the Michael Schofield kind of range, of player, which, Michael Schofield is also available, I guess. I don't know. I think he probably is retired at this point, but I just think given the ties that the Chargers and Bears have made previously, I know some of this is Tom Telesco and stuff like that, but Joe Ortiz has done 2 different trades with Ryan Bates. With Ryan Poles, definitely confusing there. So I think there could be potentially something here where they could maybe work something out. Bates has been in the kind of power scheme world that, the Chargers want to run. So he's the only guard that I could find that I was like, would this team move on from him? Is he at least interesting? Other than that, there's not a lot of guards who are available for trade right now.
Yeah, I think Ryan Bates is one of my 2 favorite options on any of the lists that we've talked about so far. Assuming he's available, of course, which I'm sure because I think he's one of my favorites, he's not available. But even the preseason, he's played some center if needed to. He's played every spot along the line. His numbers are generally good, career 97.8 is very good. So I think that if he's available, I'd be perfectly happy with this one. If it's via cut and then sign, even better. If they have to trade for him, fine, I get it. But yeah, I would be all for this. If they're really signaling that Jamari is tackle, Branson Taylor is tackle, which I don't really buy, but that's what they're saying. Then yes, finding a truer interior guy, I think makes more sense, and Bates makes sense.
I agree. Another Patriot potential cut, and again, I know bad offensive line cut candidate from that offensive line, not necessarily great. But Sidy So, who was a 4th-round pick in 2023, has 800 snaps at right guard. He did start right tackle in 1 game last season. Patriots, despite being the worst offensive line in the league, were also very injured, so it did not go well. If you search Sidy So on Twitter, you'll see a couple clips from Brandon Thorne, and that's enough for me to be like, hey, man, maybe he's a little bit interesting. The numbers, again, are not very good. Full disclosure there, but when you're looking for scheme fits. The Patriots run so many similar concepts to the Chargers in this world where they're doing, a lot of gap power schemes, a lot of pulling, a lot of pin and pull, a lot of counter. I think there could be some overlap here, even if it's not like the same system. So is this somebody who you can maybe get back on the right track as a player? He is still technically under a rookie contract for 2 more years potentially. So this is, again, a more of a dart throw than anything else, but could be interesting.
Yeah. At this point, yes, it is very much so dart throws. So fine. The numbers aren't great for him, but I'll take a dart throw.
Yeah. The last one here, obviously, a Utah guy, Satoa Laumea. This is somebody that the Chargers were at least interested enough in him where Mike Devlin went and visited the campus in Utah, did an extra workout for him after the Utah Pro Day, did extra work with him at the Combine. They were working on center stuff at the Combine, center stuff at Pro Day. So we don't know a ton about how the Chargers draft and how the coaches are impacted here, but Mike Devlin going to a Pro Day and working at the Combine has been a bit of a indicator of we're interested in this player. Obviously, they drafted Joe Alt. They drafted Branson Taylor. Devlin was at both of those, working out with both players. So this is maybe an indication that they could be interested in him. Utah, they run the exact same scheme that the Chargers run. I've watched it my entire life. It's a ton of duo, ton of counter, ton of power. He played tackle in college. He's been a guard for the Seahawks, obviously, primarily, mostly right guard. So can he play right tackle for you in a pinch? I think he probably could. He doesn't have like the overwhelming length to do that, but athletically he definitely does. So it sounds like he's probably making the roster, but there were a couple of Seahawks beat writers that said, hey man, maybe this is kind of a, keep linebacker 5 instead of the offensive lineman number 8 or 9 kind of deal like we're talking about with the Chargers. Mm-hmm. So there is at least a decent chance that he could be cut. Even though I love him dearly, I would not trade for him just because I don't think that's worthy of a trade. But if he gets cut, I would definitely be interested.
Yeah, I think with a younger player, a newer player like this, I think they would be more likely to go with a younger option on the interior versus I think that tackle like they did with David Sharp. I think they'd want a veteran, an older player like we mentioned before, just been there, done that, thousands of snaps, for good or for worse. Go with a veteran tackle. With these guys, with interior guys, like I really think push comes to shove, you're just playing like Becton goes down, you're playing Jamari. So I think that you can have a little bit more patience with a younger guy like this and someone who's maybe not as good right now, but you want to develop over the next couple of years.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's a worthy dart throw for either of these players for the long term. Again, Zion's a free agent after this year. Jamari's a free agent after this year. Andre James is a free agent after this year. You obviously have Mackay and Bozeman on 2-year contracts, but they're older players. So, this is like the main reason why we wanted them to draft a guard. Obviously, they took one and now he's playing tackle. So we'll see what happens there. Last slide, available guard free agents. Again, not a great list. However, there are some players who are very, very experienced. Shaq Mason has over 9,000 career snaps at right guard. Similar Patriot conversation as we've had in the past. He did have his worst season in the NFL in terms of grades and pass blocking efficiency last season for the Texans. Brandon Thorne still, like as of 2023, was a huge fan of Shaq Mason. Called him like one of the most underrated players in the NFL that year. So I hate to keep stealing stuff from him, but anytime I'm talking offensive line, I'm going to go see what the king is talking about. So the Texans obviously clean house with the offensive line department last year. Is Shaq Mason a little bit to blame there? Is the offensive line system, not working super well to blame for his career worst season? Maybe. I still think he could be at least valuable to this team. And again, a veteran player who has 9,000 career snaps, that's kind of hard to argue against. The next one is Dalton Reisner, who of this list is the most active with visits. Dalton Reisner recently worked out for the Bengals. I believe he's working out for the Steelers this week as well, if memory serves, of that reporting from Jeremy Fowler. He's got over 4,000 career snaps at left guard, played right guard for the first time in his career last season for the Vikings. He's somebody that I think you and I both mock drafted to the Chargers way back when. So he's definitely somebody that I've liked watching over the years. Is he a great player? No. If he were, he would not be still a free agent on August 21st. But if he can play right guard, I think he definitely should be interesting for the Chargers.
He's a player, and it goes back to a couple of years now where I just don't understand why there isn't more of a demand for him. Again, not that he's an elite player, but I mean they're spending. What do some of these teams spend? $15 million, $20 million on guards that like they're not worth it. No offense. Whereas this guy can't even get a contract right now. So I don't know if he's just like an asshole and people don't want to sign him because there's some character thing that I don't know about.
Sure.
But as far as I'm aware, like you watch him play, you look at the numbers. This is a good player. At minimum, he's an average player. So is there a spot for him right now? No. So it's possible he's looking for somewhere where he can start, which I'd understand. But if it's purely for depth purposes, I mean, heck yeah, go get this guy right now.
Yeah. I think he probably would maybe not be the starter on the Bengals right away, but I think he probably could push for that later in the year.
And Wilson just went down.
Yeah. So they drafted the other Georgia guard. What was his name?
Oh, gosh. Oh, why don't I know this? Obviously, it's not Wilson. Obviously, this is not Ratledge. It's I don't remember. Dark Samus, where are you? We need you.
Where's Thomas Martinez when you need him?
Where's Thomas Martinez?
Not Ratledge. Not Ratledge. I remember Ratledge. He was like my favorite player in the draft class. This is gonna bug me. I'm just gonna look it up.
All right, I'll sing all the Madison Beer songs I know while I wait.
Dylan Fairchild. There we go.
Dylan Fairchild. Yep.
So he's going to play left guard for them. Their right guard spot, now that Volson is injured, is probably going to be Cody Ford, which is not great. No. So that's where the Bengals are at. So if he plays there, he probably is going to start at some point in the season. The last one here is Mark Lewinsky, formerly of the Indianapolis Colts, where he played for 4 seasons in and around Marcus Brady. Obviously, Brady was not, an offensive line coach by any means. And then he went to New York and played with Andy Bischoff for multiple seasons. So there's some connections here. Definitely some schematic overlap here. He has over 5,000 snaps at right guard. Again, so if they're a little bit kind of cognizant of like left side, right side, which I don't think they are specifically at guard. He does have 1,300 at left guard. Last 2 seasons, definitely a bit of a mixed bag. Again, the Giants overall are not like this amazing offensive line ecosystem for these guys. But he's got a lot of experience. I think he could be a little interesting if they do want to go a guard here. So that's the theme of the day, folks. Is he a little interesting? If yes, the Chargers should be interested.
That's like my Tinder profile. Like, I'm a little interesting. That's all I got. I don't even think I have a Tinder profile. Not anymore, obviously. I've been
now you're married.
10 years now.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah. So
that's how I'm ending this conversation.
There you go. So Tyler, did you have a favorite of the group of players that we talked about today?
Yeah, you, honestly. I prefer to see you out there. Give it a shot. Throw some money back into the podcast.
Yeah.
I mean, Dalton Reisner is the guy I would probably go for.
Yeah.
I think it'll be a Tyree Phillips type. Kendall Lamb, if available, is probably my favorite option because at least we've seen the flexibility. He is a veteran. He was on the Titans in 2021, which means he'll be good for the Chargers. The numbers were good last year. So he's probably not available for those reasons, but I think that he's probably one of my favorites. You?
Yeah, I would say for 2025, that would be Kendall Lamb, I would say, just because I think he's probably the best player right now. Guard wise, I would say Ryan Bates after that, and then I would put Dylan Radins next, and then Reisner fourth.
Yeah, that sounds about right to me.
So
I'll take anything. Now, Chargers fans in the chat, you let me know. Are they actually going to do anything? Our server says, nope, probably not.
I think they will at least bring in people for a workout again, especially if Saturday does not go well.
True. I think we will get a LaRaven Clark sighting at some point.
Yeah, he was on this list, and then we took him off. So
yeah,
But I think Tyree Phillips makes a lot of sense. Given the connections, he can play guard and tackle. I think that once he gets cut, because he's not making that roster, like once he gets cut, that makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah.
And Chargers fans will immediately go to the PFF grades, which were not great after he tore his ACL or whatever it was. But hey, man, again, the bar is literally at the floor.
Yeah, can you have a 0.8 pass blocking grade? Congratulations, you are an upgrade.
Can you have a 1?
Can you get 1 out of 100? Can you put your name on the test, please? If you can do that, you are getting a higher score.
Yeah. All right, man. Any final thoughts before we get into some of the super chats and some questions?
Let's jump in. All
right, so we hit on Lorenzo's earlier. Appreciate Lorenzo for getting us started.
Mm-hmm.
Gruder McBolt, great name, says Roman has been very adamant about Heineke being a proven winner and hasn't strayed from that even after the last game. Is it for trade value?
Where has he won? I'm dead serious. A proven winner in like spot duty? I mean, I guess he had a good run for a little bit with the Commanders one time.
Let's see. So his record, obviously, like in 2020, he played one game. It was the playoff game. Everybody remembers that, and they almost beat the Buccaneers that game.
Yep.
He was 7-8 in 2021 after the Chargers knocked out Ryan Fitzpatrick. He was 5-2 in Washington again in 2022. 1-3 in Atlanta last year. So his proven win record overall is 13-15.
All right. But okay. Yes, he has won some games. The only thing he's proven so far is that he misses this past year. Is it for trade value? I hope so. I think a team, if you're a team and you watch this preseason, unless you think you could magically fix him, which, maybe like the Vikings could, the 49ers, whatever, some of these actual teams with decent quarterback whispering groups, maybe. Yeah. But like I wouldn't trade for him. Like, you watch the games and it's like, geez, dude, do you want to keep your receivers alive for a little bit here?
Yeah, I think the logic overall when you're signing a veteran backup quarterback or trading for one like the Chargers did last year, it's, can this veteran just like stabilize the room and show our other guys how to practice, how to watch film, techniques, everything, just be a sounding board. That's why the Chargers signed Chase Daniel. It wasn't because he was like the best quarterback, available for Justin Herbert, but he was maybe the best option in that particular offense at that moment. Mm-hmm. He's a guy who obviously had a lot of experience working with that offense, etc. Heineke was more just like, we just need anybody else.
Yes, the bar was low.
The bar was low again, like last with the offensive line. So for another team, if you're potentially trying to trade for Taylor Heineke this year, maybe you're a team like the Titans who have a rookie quarterback and you don't really have an established veteran behind him. So I think their current backup quarterback right now is Brandon Allen, who he's played like sparingly for the Bengals a little bit, but he's never really been like a guy that people went after as a backup quarterback. So doesn't have the same like cachet as Taylor Heineke. So maybe that's something. The Saints seem like they're going to carry all three young quarterbacks on the roster. And I read today that they're like maybe considering rotating in a game with Tyler Shuck and Spencer Rattler, which is insane to me. I just don't think that's a viable quarterback room. You have, three rookies essentially who have never played. Like, it's just, they need a veteran backup.
Mm-hmm.
So should the Saints be trading picks away for a veteran backup? No, but they also just traded a 4th-round pick for Devon Bailey, who I like, but he's a 28-year-old second-year player. So who knows? Other than that, I don't know if there's a ton of teams that are going to be like dying to go trade for Taylor Heineke when the Chargers are probably just going to cut him anyway.
Yeah, I think that plenty of teams will line up to sign him, but I don't think anybody's going to be trading for him. But if the Saints want him, please have at it. If you want to rotate in a game, by all means.
Yeah. I will throw this out there. His former offensive coordinator in Washington is Norv Turner's son. I forget his first name, who is the quarterback's coach in New York. Oh. So Tyrod Taylor is currently dealing with an injury. I don't think it's believed to be super serious. The vibe that Taylor Heineke has just as like a scrapper potentially fits with like what Aaron Glenn is going for. So if Tyrod's injury is serious enough, I could potentially see that happening, but I don't know if Tyrod's injury is that serious.
Scott Turner.
That's the one.
Thank you. Yes. Scott Turner. Did not know.
Yeah. So maybe something to keep an eye on, but to me, it's like the Titans are probably the team that should be looking for a veteran backup at this point. Sounds like Jameis is staying in New York. It doesn't sound like they're looking to trade him. So how many other veteran backups are available for trade? I don't really know, but that's the team to me that makes the most sense.
All right. They can have Heineke and Jaw Taylor for Dylan Radunes.
He's on the Saints now.
I'm sorry.
Actually, that still works though, because Josh Taylor can go reunite with Brandon Staley.
That's what I meant, Steven. I don't know why you looked at me funny. That's what I meant the entire time.
There we go. NSN wants to know if Willie Lampkin is a serious offensive line candidate from the Rams. Obviously, formerly Omarion Hampton's starting center.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know enough about how that's going. I know the film community loved watching Lampkin at North Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
He's really, really small to potentially play guard, and having three centers is a little tough for me for the Chargers specifically.
Mm-hmm.
But if they want him on the practice squad, I'm cool with that. But yeah, I don't know if he's going to make the roster or not. I didn't even really look at that, to be completely honest with you, because I do think he is a center only guy.
Yeah, but
he was fun to watch on tape. I will say that.
Yeah, so he's played under 10 snaps in both his preseason games. Although his pass blocking grade was 81 points higher than Branson Taylor's. So there's that.
Oh man, I hope Branson Taylor plays really well on Saturday.
Me too. I hope he's a Hall of Famer. Seriously, we're gonna all go back and laugh at this, and his Hall of Fame speech is going to feature us saying we should cut him. So, yeah.
I did not realize this, but the Saints' top three receivers are all from San Diego now, with Chris Olave and Rashid Shaheed.
Oh, huh. Anybody else we can throw at them?
Yeah. Charlie Bill says Billy Volek once threw back-to-back 400-yard games. Is that true?
I recall
for the Chargers?
I don't recall another one, so someone else can let me know on that one. Back-to-back is pretty impressive, though.
That's got to be for the Titans, not for the Chargers, right?
I have no idea.
He played great in the one half against the Colts when Rivers was hurt, but so 2004 was his best season. Probably was that year. He sure did. Wow, good pull there. Week 14 against the Chiefs in a game where the Titans lost 38-49. Billy Volek had 426 yards passing and 5 touchdowns.
Holy cow.
The next week they lost to the Raiders 35-40, and he had 492 yards and 4 touchdowns.
Wow. So almost 1,000 yards.
Wow. That was an absolute heater of a sequence there. Good for him.
Pretty good.
I'm rolling through if there's any specific questions here.
We do have a new super chat from
go for it.
Nicholas. I believe Najee may be cut. Shout out to my girlfriend, Jess. I don't believe he's going to be cut, but
thanks
shout
for
out
tuning in, Jess. Yeah. Will he be on the NFI list? I think is very, very possible. He still is not practicing. So again, we are 5 days away from cuts. I think it's most likely that he is on the NFI list as of Tuesday, and I think he misses at least 4 games.
Oh yeah, I think it's a minimum of 4 games at this point.
Yeah,
unfortunately.
But I saw people were speculating that maybe teams would be calling to trade for him.
Why?
He's not practicing. I don't even think he can pass a physical right now. So I don't think any team could. I don't think any team can trade for him.
He barely got a contract with 2 eyes. You want him to trade for him with this? I mean, like
That's so bad.
his tiny contract. Honestly, I'm actually shocked at the contract he got.
Yeah.
With this, I ain't trading for him.
No, there's no chance any team would trade for him. At this point, the Chargers' best bet is to keep him on NFI as long as he needs to recover. Whenever he's back, hopefully he can get back to his former self and be the RB2 behind Omarion. But yeah, it definitely is a sad situation for him.
Yes.
Jacob Wright talking about Nikko Reed here. I wanted to bring this up to kind of maybe finish this with Benjamin St-Juste discourse, because he's been catching a lot of strays on social media and things like that. After Jesse Minter said that he thinks that Benjamin St-Juste is like a bona fide starter for them. The exact quote is that they feel like they have 4 starters: Tarheeb, Dante Jackson, Cam Hart, and Benjamin St-Juste. And people were like, Jesse Minter doesn't know what he's talking about. Like, we just saw him take Christian Fulton and 2 5th-round picks and turn them all into like legitimately good football players. So I know that didn't go well in Washington. I understand he has the Michigan connection, but just be a little patient with Benjamin St-Juste, because I think Jesse Minter has absolutely earned the right to say, hey man, I see some things that I like here, and this is a guy we believe in, and I think it will turn out okay. Is he going to merit a future $10 million contract like Fulton did? I probably doubt it, but just be a little patient and trust that Jesse Minter, who is one of the best defensive play callers in the NFL, knows what he's talking about with a guy who fits his scheme and things like that.
Yeah. No one really thought he was a great player when they signed him. The Commanders fans were happy to see him go, but I think that, I'll let this process play out. I like Eli Apple, and then I'm watching him do good stuff. And
yeah.
This safety I've never heard of before. Oh, interception. That's so strange. Who are these people? I don't know. I couldn't even tell you their names now, but they played great for the Chargers last year. So do I think he's a great player? No, but I think he's safe. I thought he was trending towards completely not making the roster, and it was Nikko Reed's. Like 3 weeks ago, or the first preseason game, I think it was Nikko Reed's. But the way they talk about him, the way he instantly got right back into the starting rotation. Yeah, St-Juste is making it.
Yeah, I think part of the rationale for signing him is that they wanted some insurance if Cam Hart was going to continue to be injured. And unfortunately, we've seen him continue to be injured with multiple injuries in training camp. So I think that when Cam Hart is healthy, he will be ahead of Benjamin St-Juste. But we just unfortunately have to wait and see if he can stay healthy or not. But by all accounts, it sounds like Tarheeb and Dante are going to be their main 2 corners, and then Cam will be their next one up after that, is my guess. Yeah. So just be a little bit patient with St-Juste. I think he'll play spot duty, and I think he'll be fine.
Yep, I think so too.
All right. That is going to do it for us today. Hopefully you guys enjoyed that conversation. Hopefully you found some offensive line cut candidates that you want the Chargers to potentially sign next Tuesday or Wednesday, I guess. So it should be fun. Final preseason game on Saturday. We will be live shortly thereafter with main takeaways and our final 53-man roster prediction, as we do every single year. So it's coming down to the wire, as Jim Harbaugh said today. A lot of players potentially vying for these final 3 roster spots. So I can't wait, man. I love putting the chess pieces together. So it's a fun exercise. And I'm curious to see how it all turns out.
Yep. Should be fun. I will see you guys Saturday night. Should be fun. We will not ditch you for Crab Rangoon. Apparently that happened today with Dana Pepper. I don't even know what the context of all that is, but we will not ditch you for that. I would never. I'll eat on the stream.
We have done that several times before.
Yes, we have.
All right, you guys. I appreciate you so much. Again, make sure to leave a rating, review, comment, like. All that good stuff does really help continue to grow our show as we head into the 2025 NFL season. All right, this has been another episode of the Guilty as Charged podcast. As always, bolt up